AP with VC, it's Andy, Cloudy, Milder, rock and metal vinyl collection update time. The title says special edition because this is kind of, it is a rock and metal collection update, but it's also, I guess, a VCLT video with a little bit of a difference, or maybe it's not really a difference. It's I've received some VCLT basically by somebody who watches my videos but doesn't make videos themselves. His name is David G. And he left a note on one of my previous videos offering me some albums. So I replied to him, and I presumed he was looking to sell them. So I think he offered me 4, and I replied and said there's a couple I'd be interested in, depends on the cost. And he emailed me back and just said no charge. I want you to have them. And if I'm prepared to pay postage for them, he'll just let me, he'll just send them to me, which kind of blew me away, really. Just such a nice gesture. So thank you very much, David. I really, really appreciate that. So after I replied and said, there's a couple that I'd be interested in, he just said, do you know what, I'm going to send you them all, and I found an extra one as well. So a week or so later, he sent me an email and just said, listen, I've posted them, and this much to the postage. The postage was really reasonable, to be fair. And he packaged them incredibly well, and they arrived a few days later. I decided not to do sort of the traditional opening video because, one, I knew what was in the box, and 2, apart from one of the albums, which I already own, I hadn't heard any of the others, so rather than just hold up a bunch of albums that I knew were coming and have no opinion whatsoever on them, there wouldn't be, the surprise element wasn't there. I thought I would wait a week or so, give them all a spin, and do this more in the form of an update. So let's dive straight in. So the one record that I already had, which is a great record by the way, is Armoured Saint, March of the Saint. Now, LP wise, I think this might be an upgrade. The cover I have is slightly better, although this is in excellent condition. Armoured Saint's first album, really good. It's got a very American metal sound, but I think there's a big new wave of British heavy metal influenced sound in here. John Bush on vocals, Joey Vera on bass, and the Sanderville brothers on drums and guitar, and Dave Pritchett on guitar. Oh yeah, sorry, I thought they had 3 guitars for a second. That threw me, but no, there we go. So excellent debut album. I mean, March of the Saint, Can You Deliver, I think was the big hit from this one. But I like songs like False Alarm as well. So excellent, and I will think of what to do with the second copy. I'm sure it could be a trade to be made out there somewhere. So the second album I'm going to show was the one that he said, the additional one that he found he was going to send me anyway. I was kind of I was a bit excited to get it because I've heard about this artist before, and the only thing I have from her is on the Stars on Thrash compilation, which came out in around '88, and that is of course The Great Cat, Beethoven on Speed. This is from 1990. It's a Road Racer release from Holland. And what actually surprised me, I thought she was German for some reason, but she's English, and she plays very, very fast, over the top thrash metal. It is very much style over substance. She's obviously wants everybody to know how technically good she is. I know she was classically trained. So there's a lot of guitar wankery over, actually good songs, to be honest with you. I believe it's meant to be tongue-in-cheek. I hope it is tongue-in-cheek. But I mean, with songs like Beethoven on Speed, Cat Abuse, Bach to the Future, it's one of those albums that is actually, it's really not very good, but I am so happy to have this in my collection. These spots here are obviously record shop stickers. I don't know if as and when David might have brought these, but it does say very fast metal on there. But there we go. And it also has the Great Cat IQ test in the side. The Great Cat IQ test is, again, it's very much a egomaniacs. Just the photos of it. It's just incredible stuff. So let me read you one of the questions. So Sex and Violins, which is one of the songs on here, features the most brilliant violin virtuosity on both acoustic and electric violins because 1. The Great Cat wants to fuck with your brain. 2. The Great Cat wants to prove you shitheads you wouldn't know the difference between an acoustic or electric violin if it bit you in the ass. Option 3, the Great Cat is looking for any possible way to prove to the world that the Great Cat is the most brilliant musician and composer in history. And 4, the Great Cat is changing the course of music history through the brilliant transition from pure classical music to modern day hyperspeed. Get it, Pion? So, if you would like to see the full Great Cat IQ test, I can do a separate video if you want. Just send me a check in the post. But it is obviously very tongue-in-cheek. There are cat quotes here, and there are catisms here. Catisms, brilliant and total genius, the utmost in superiority. Vicious Tasmanian devil, speed demon, guitar whiz, Juilliard, graduate, violin, virtuoso, genius composer. It is self-indulgent guitar wankery, not at its finest. But as I say, absolutely delighted to have it. Out of all these records I've had, I've played them all at least twice. But this one I played once, and to be honest with you, that's enough for now. It may get another outing. I'm sure it will get plenty of outings as contest entries and what have you in the VC. But there's the Road Racer label, iconic label. So on to more serious matters. So the next one is a an album, which when I started collecting vinyl again, probably 5 years ago now, 6 years ago now. One of the first times I went out digging in record shops in Edinburgh, and it was Unknown Pleasures, the shop down by Parliament Building in Edinburgh. And I saw this record, but I'd blown my budget, so I left it thinking, well, I'll pick that up next time. And I haven't seen it again since, so I was quite pleased that this one was in the bunch. This is Tora Tora Surprise Attack. It's Tora Tora's debut album. This is kind of in the difficult to it's certainly not hair metal or glam metal. It's not really sleaze metal. It's a little bit heavy. It's quite hard rock. I would kind of say it's to me, I haven't listened to it a few times. It's Bon Jovi meets Guns N' Roses on the A&M record label. It's from 1989. It's a UK press. It's a really good album from start to last but one song, and then they stick the obligatory ballad on the end, which I could quite happily do without. But I'm very, very happy to have this one in the collection finally. So that's Tora Tora Surprise Attack. Next up, so one of the albums that did interest me was by Pretty Boy Floyd, and I'd seen a few people show a couple of Pretty Boy Floyd albums, and I didn't recognise the name of the one that David offered me, but I was quite happy to have it anyway, because he sent me the 5 of them, and I listened to it and I thought, okay, this is pretty good. It's I wasn't sure what to expect. I hadn't heard any Pretty Boy Floyd before, and then I went to catalogue it in my system and Discogs, and couldn't find it anywhere. So this is the album. This is A Bullet and Lipstick by Pretty Boy Floyd. And Pretty Boy Floyd aficionados out there would probably not recognise it either, because it turns out this is the Canadian Pretty Boy Floyd and not the US version. This, a little like, I guess, the Wrathchild America and the Wrathchild UK bands, both came up with the same name, and someone had to lose, and the Canadian Pretty Boy Floyd lost in the rights to keep their name. So this was their one and done album. It's from 1988, Hanover Records. It's a Canadian pressing. There we go. It's a, I guess you could call it a double A side, because there are, what, 6 songs on the A side, and there are exactly the same 6 songs on the B side as well. It's it sounds like it looks, but it's quite upbeat, a little bit commercial sounding, a little bit kind of sleaze hair metal sounding as well. But I'm actually kind of pleased that it's not the Pretty Boy Floyd I was expecting. Although I still haven't heard them, I'm sure it will be a lot easier to pick up than Canadian pressing of this one. I believe Tommy Floyd went on to form another band after this one, and obviously Pete Parker went on to bigger things after being bitten by a radioactive spider. But yeah, Pretty Boy Floyd, that was a pleasant surprise, because it confused the hell out of me when I tried to figure out why the Pretty Boy Floyd I'd heard of hadn't released this album. Love the label as well. So one, I guess, custom label, and then the track list. As I say, it's the same 6 tracks on both sides. And there's Mr. Floyd himself. Another band shot there. To the doubters and non-believers, you can't stop a loaded gun. You can stop a band if someone else has the same name and they have the rights to it. Now, last one. And I owe an apology, I think, to Mr. Sammy Hagar. This is my first Sammy Hagar album. This is pretty much the first Sammy Hagar solo stuff I've ever heard. I know a couple of like the really big numbers that he had when he was with Van Halen, and I never liked them. Now, the whole don't judge a book by its cover thing, and this kind of shows how kind of shallow my musical viewpoint was, certainly in the 80s and beyond a bit, to be fair. When I first saw pictures of Sammy Hagar with a sort of a blonde, I guess I thought it was a perm at the time, and wearing red trousers, to me that was not metal. So he obviously couldn't be a talented artist at all. But having had the opportunity to get this through, let's face it, a freebie through VCLT from David, I thoroughly enjoyed this one out of all of the ones that he sent me. So this is Loud and Clear. It's a live album, and I think live albums are a great way to get introduced to bands. It's worked for me in the past, certainly with bands like Iron Maiden. I'll never look back. This was originally released in 1978 on a red vinyl, and this is a 1979 repress, UK on Capitol. I think this album was only ever released in the UK. The songs on it are Red, Rock and Roll Weekend, Make It Last, Reckless, Turn Up the Music, I've Done Everything for You, Young Girl, Blues, Bad Motor Scooter, and Space Station number 5. I may well be a Sammy Hagar convert now, so if you can recommend me which maybe studio album I should perhaps look out for and check out next, preferably ones that have tracks from this on, so there's a bit of continuity there, then I may well be turned around to the curly blonde hair and a red jeans frontman. So there we go. Big surprise. I'm quite delighted, really. Bit embarrassed, but you know, I've been held back for so long. But again, well, actually, pictures like that would have been so bad because they're black and white. I wouldn't be able to see. I'm presuming he's wearing the red because you know, there's the name of the song on here is Red and what have you. So yeah, there we go. Beautiful condition. Label, track listing. So there we have it. A little bit of an impromptu update. None of these things actually went into the inbox, so I've not classed them as a it came from the inbox episode. This is a straight up rock and metal collection / VCLT. Thank you so much again, David. It was very, very kind of you to send those to me. Completely out of the blue. As I say, David doesn't do videos, and I'm not sure he's really had much interaction on my channel before, but he did mention in his email that he over the years replaced sort of thousands of albums with CDs, and these are I guess the last few that he had left, and he really wasn't sure what to do with them, so he wanted to give them to a good home, and I can assure you they're in a very, very good home, and I will get much enjoyment out of them. So thanks again, David. Really, really appreciate that, and thanks for your fortune.